The Silent Clockmaker, a tale of avarice and eternity. In the forgotten town of Oakhaven, where the chimneys rarely smoked and the paths were overgrown with moss, there lived a master craftsman named Elias. Elias was a clockmaker of prodigious skill. His hands, though aged and gnarled, possessed an almost mystical ability to weave life into brass, copper, and gears. His workshop, a labyrinthine space situated behind his desolate home, was his entire world. It was a realm governed by time, yet divorced from the passing of days. The workshop itself was less a place of industry and more a vault of mechanical obsession. Thousands of clocks, pocket watches, mantle clocks, grand pendulum clocks, and towering grandfather clocks cluttered every available surface. They ticked, chimed, whirred, and gonged in a deafening cacophony, each keeping its own slightly imperfect time, creating a perpetual, pulsating roar that Elias alone seemed to understand. But Elias was deeply solitary, his heart as cold and intricate as the mechanisms he created. His genius was not driven by the joy of creation, but by an insatiable hunger for ownership. He valued his timepieces above all human connection, above charity, and above companionship. His mantra was simple: to possess the most complete, varied, and valuable collection of time in the known world. His greed was a tightly wound mainspring governing his every isolated action. One bleak night, the air heavy with unfallen snow, a sharp singular rap broke through the ceaseless ticking. Elias, startled by the intrusion upon his solitude, grudgingly opened the reinforced wooden door. Standing on his threshold was a figure cloaked in thick gray fabric, his face obscured by the shadow of a deep hood. This was the stranger, and the air around him felt unnaturally still, as if the very atoms had paused their dance. The stranger offered no greeting, only lifting a single intricate object, a clock unlike any Elias had ever seen. It was crafted from jet-black metal, polished to a mirror shine, reflecting the lamplight in an oily, disturbing sheen. It was ornately carved with symbols that seemed to writhe and shift in the periphery, but its most unsettling feature was its absolute silence. It bore no hands, no numbers, and produced not a single tick or chime.
Master Clockmaker, I bring you a piece beyond compare. It measures something you value above all else.
Elias, forgetting his aversion to strangers, felt a tremor of pure avarice seize him. He reached out and snatched the cold metal from the stranger's grasp.
Where are the hands? What time does it tell?
It tells your time, Elias. It stops when you stop wanting. Keep it, and you will have all the time in the world, provided you make one simple covenant. You must never share or sell another clock of your own making again.
Before Elias could process the chilling proposition, the stranger was gone, dissolving into the swirling flakes of snow. Elias did not hesitate. The bargain was struck the moment the black clock settled in his palm. He immediately barricaded his workshop, dismissing the final few outstanding orders from customers who desperately awaited his finished pieces. He became consumed by the silent timepiece, polishing its dark surface, searching for hidden mechanisms, and finding none. Its mystery surpassed his mechanical genius, and that only fueled his desire to possess it utterly. Days bled into weeks. Elias ignored the grinding roar of his thousands of clocks, his gaze fixed solely on the silent one. He refused to wind his old creations, reasoning that the black clock promised him an eternity of time. Why bother with the paltry, finite ticks of brass and steel? Slowly, insidiously, the constant, comforting chaos of the workshop began to change. One by one, the mainsprings slackened, the pendulums hesitated, and the final gongs faded. The ticking orchestra collapsed into a chilling, absolute silence. The atmosphere became heavy, the air thick and stagnant. It was the silence not of peace, but of a vacuum. of a moment frozen forever. Elias, finally looking up from his obsession, was gripped by a stark terror. His magnificent collection, his life's work, was dead. It was all motionless, fused at the moment his attention had turned toward greed. He frantically grabbed an old pocket watch, attempting to wind it, but the gears were seized solid. He looked down at the black clock in horror, realizing that a faint, viscous, oily residue was leaking from its casing. It wasn't measuring time, it was consuming it, drawing the life from everything around it. As Elias watched, faint, ghostly etchings began to appear on the surface of the black clock, the tiny, spectral outlines of his own silent, dead timepieces, now forever imprisoned within the consuming object.
What have I done? I wanted more time, but I just killed it all.
He tried to throw the cursed artifact, but his fingers were frozen to the cold metal. He struggled violently, but the black clock seemed to have fused with his very flesh, the smooth, dark metal pressing into his skin. The silence in the room was his tomb. His desperate gasps for air were the loudest, most pathetic sound in existence.
Share. I should have shared.
The next morning, driven by days of unanswered calls, the Oakhaven townspeople broke down the workshop door. They found the space filled with thousands of perfectly still, perfectly silent clocks. The fine dust that covered them looked ancient, as if decades had passed overnight. At the central workbench sat Elias. His body was upright, his eyes wide open, reflecting the light but utterly vacant. He was fused at the chest and hands to the black clock, which now shone with an intense, malignant brilliance. Elias, the master clockmaker, had become the final, most prized, and most tragic artifact in his own collection. A man granted all the time in the world, only to find it was an endless, frozen, empty moment of silence. His greed had consumed him, turning his life's work into his eternal, silent grave.